I'm Judy Brannigan with the Orland Park Public Library in Orland Park, Illinois. Today my interview is with Johnny Anderson, and we'll get started. Oh, I'm sorry, today is September 26th, 2014. So, Mr. Anderson, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Johnny Anderson. My rank in the military was CW5. I am retired. I started out as enlisted soldier, as a private. Stayed enlisted until I became a master sergeant, master sergeant E8. And then I decided to become a warrant officer.
Okay. Can you explain for us your ranking there, what the numbers and letters stand for?
Well, Master Sergeant is the highest well, not the highest, but a fairly high-ranking enlisted soldier.
Okay.
I was a first sergeant. First sergeant is the #1 sergeant that controls and guides the soldiers. After that, I decided to become a warrant officer and started out as a warrant officer 1. And it goes all the way up to Warrant Officer 5. So I made and retired as a CW5 Master Warrant.
Okay, very good. Okay, can you tell us about your family life before you enlisted?
Before I enlisted, I was single, and I am one of 6 children.
Okay.
I was in my first year of college. I was not able, or could I afford, a full schedule for that semester. So I got drafted and got this nice letter from my uncle, Sam, and went into the military.
Okay. What did your parents do?
My father worked at the Conrad Hilton Hotel, and he was a maintenance guy there, and he was also a shop steward for the Union. My mother worked at R.R. Donnelly, and that's what she did.
Okay. And brothers, sisters?
I have an older brother that also went in the military. He was in during the Korean conflict.
Okay.
And I have a younger brother who went into the military after Vietnam.
Okay.
He only stayed 2 years, but he went to West Point for a year, decided that West Point was not what he wanted, so he got out.
Okay, and what?
And then I have 3 sisters, and they were basically stay-home moms.
Okay, and what branches of the military were your brothers in?
All of us were Army.
All Army.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And did you have any friends who got drafted or enlisted?
Yes. Robert, who was one of my best friends, we went to high school together, played football together. He was drafted about the same time I was. I had another friend by the name of Eugene. He was drafted, went to the Army also. Ernest Commander, he went to the Air Force. So he got drafted but then volunteered for the Air Force. And that's kind of how we kind of grew up. After high school, that was our destinies.
Okay. And what high school did you go to?
I went to Inglewood High School and at 62nd and Stewart in Chicago, Illinois.
Okay.
Very, very tough neighborhood, but I guess that prepared me for the Army.
Okay. So you got drafted.
I got drafted.
And where did you go to first?
My first duty station was basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky. From Fort Knox, after 8 weeks there, I was sent to Fort Polk, Louisiana. That's where they train infantry soldiers. So I did 9 weeks at Fort Polk. After Fort Polk, I got a 2-week leave stint, and then I got orders for Vietnam.
Okay. And the basic training, can you tell us what that was like for you?
Basic training was, for me, was like gym, because I played football in high school, so I was still in halfway decent condition. And you did a lot of physical training. You learned marksmanship with the rifle, so you learned all the nomenclatures of the rifle, how to read maps, how to do radio communications, first aid. First aid was very important. So those are the type of things that you do in basic training to learn how to be a basic soldier.
Okay. And did you get along with your superiors?
Basically, I got along pretty good. Unfortunately, or fortunate, I'm not sure which, I had basic training with a lot of National Guard soldiers. So they were not going to be soldiers that were going to Vietnam. They were going to come there and get trained for basic training and then go back home and then go to National Guard meetings, 1 week in a month. And they were all from one state, so they were like buddies. And the 10 of us that were with them were kind of outcast because we were soldiers going to Vietnam. But they didn't give us a hard time or anything like that. We were blended in pretty well.
Okay, good. So then after basic training?
After basic training, then you go to what they call Advanced Individual Training, or AIT. And that was where we went to infantry training at Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Okay.
Very hot climate, pretty much like Vietnam. A lot of jungle type atmosphere that prepared you for training for Vietnam. And there you learned how to, disembark off of helicopters, fire weapons again, but different types of weapons now. The M79, which is a short version of a mortar type weapon. There was mortar training there. We went on patrols. You learn how to read booby traps, disengage booby traps, those type of things.
Okay. And was there one aspect of it that you liked better than the other?
Well, not knowing what Vietnam was like, I was very excited about the training because we did a lot of running and just did a lot of Army type things that I guess the average guy would like. And so that was exciting.
Okay. And then what happened after Fort Polk?
After
How
Fort
long
Polk,
were you there?
I was there 9 weeks, and I got a 3-week leave to go home. And that's when I informed my parents that my next duty station would be Vietnam. And
how did they take that?
my mother didn't take that very well. I actually had to take her to a park, walk through the park and sat her on a bench. And I tried to explain it to her this way. Mom, you got 3 sons. And Jesus Christ was only one son. And yet his father, sacrificed him for you and me. So you got to look at it that way, that you got 3 sons, and if something happens to me, you still have 2 other ones. And that's kind of how she was introduced to that, and kind of understood a little bit.
Took some comfort in it.
Yes, yes.
Okay. How about your father?
My father's just a very optimistic kind of guy. And his attitude was, I trained you to do the right thing, and I know you'll do the right thing, and I know you'll be back. So.
Okay. All right. So after your 3-week leave,
I went to Vietnam.
did you go by ship, plane?
We flew, commercial airline,
Oh.
and as soon as you arrive and hit ground there, you are introduced, because of the humidity, the weather, you're introduced to the climate right away. And you immediately began to perspire. And it was early morning when we got there, so they put us on these buses. You couldn't raise the windows because the buses had wire over the windows. So you really couldn't see out, and we went for a long ride into this disembarking area where they split us up to the units that we were going to. And you then went to your new unit.
Okay. Did you know anybody?
No.
Okay.
No.
No. And what unit did you go to?
I went to the 25th Infantry Division, Bravo Company, 2nd of the 14th Golden Dragons.
Okay.
And I was in the 3rd Platoon, and I was introduced to, I will never forget his name, First Sergeant Holbrook. And he's that kind of first sergeant that you see in the movies, you know, this rough, tough guy. And
Okay.
he had a rough, growly voice, and he scared everybody. And so they gave us, you know, our equipment that we needed, and we had to go to a 3-day school there in Vietnam as to introduce you to things you need to know as far as the climate, what type of hygiene you need to make sure you take care of, and those type of things.
Okay. And what part of Vietnam?
I was in
this
South
at?
Vietnam, a place called Cu Chi. The base camp was called Cu Chi
Okay.
for the 25th Infantry Division, and we operated in South Vietnam, in that southern part of Vietnam.
Okay. And what was the mission for your?
Our mission basically was to search and destroy the enemy wherever we and whenever we could find that enemy. We went on several different operations. We operated in a place called Hobo Woods. That was for several months that we operated in that area to clear the woods of the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that's what our mission was.
Okay. And what's involved? Clearing the
Involved in that is a sect. You're assigned a sector as a unit,
Mm-hmm.
and you are to kind of really search out that sector and clear it. You're looking for the enemy, places that they might be, other hamlets that they might be hiding in among civilians, that type of thing. You're looking for weapons. You're looking for storage areas that they might have stored food and that type of thing.
Okay. And did you go back to base at the end of every day?
Not all the
Or
time.
you,
No,
okay.
no. A lot of times, the longest mission I have gone out on was 72 days,
Okay.
and before going back to the base. And when I first got there, we basically would go out for a week and come back in,
Mm-hmm.
like a weekend. I mean, it wasn't actually a weekend, but you got 2 days, what they call stand down time.
Okay.
And after the stand down time, you go back out. But as the war got a little heavier, those stand down times became less and less and less.
Okay. So did you encounter any fighting or?
Oh, yes, yes. My first encounter, my first firefight with the enemy was like 4 weeks after I was there. And it's just something you can never imagine, I don't think. I don't think I could tell you what a firefight was like. You would have to be there to understand. The AK-47 rifle that the enemy uses is a Russian-made weapon. Carries 30 rounds. And it has such a sound to it that it has a bing sound to it. And you just never forget that sound. To this day, I still hear that sound from that weapon. And it was just different to be fired at numerous times. I mean, it's not like someone has a pistol and firing a single shot at you, but can you imagine 10, 15 guys at one time firing rounds at you, and getting down on the ground is not close enough. You want to get closer than that
Mm-hmm.
on the ground, and you can't. And so you learn how to survive.
Okay. And was it just you'd be walking through and all of a sudden?
A lot of times, yes, you would be walking in two columns,
Mm-hmm.
parallel to each other, and then all of a sudden, sometimes, you get ambushed by them. Sometimes you might be the one that ambushed them. It depends.
Okay. And were there a lot of people injured in your first fight?
No, it really wasn't. The first firefight I was in was a bunch of, I guess, farmers that the Viet Cong had recruited and made soldiers, so to speak, and they were just as scared as we were. So when we learned how, when we got fired upon, we learned to outflank them, and we captured some of them, and some of them just had, you know, weapons that they were just not really aiming at anybody. They were just pulling the trigger like they were told, and so those firefights were not as bad because you were learning how to outmaneuver the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
But as the war went on, they brought more trained soldiers from North Vietnam.
Okay.
And so firefights became very dangerous after that.
Okay. And so you were at this base the whole time that you were in Vietnam, or did you move?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I was at that particular base the whole year.
And did you venture out to different areas?
Yes, we flew out into other parts of South Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
The area like Trang Bang was a area that we went to that was known to harvest North Vietnamese soldiers, and we had a mission where we actually had to go to Trang Bang and try to remove these soldiers from that area because they were harassing the villagers and raping the women and that type of thing.
Okay. And a lot of encounters with the people who lived there, the Vietnamese?
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes. Some good, some bad.
Okay. All right. So you didn't kind of go, another story was somebody had gone out and became friends with some of the villagers.
Well, you know, you weren't allowed to just go out like that. Now,
Mhm.
there were some civilians that in the base camp were hired to work in the base camp.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to talk with those people, but never were you allowed to go out alone into a village and try to make friends or that type of thing.
Okay. Were you ever injured?
Yes, I was. I was wounded in a place called Trang Bang in a firefight, and I got shot in the left eye, but not in the eye, but it grazed my eye.
Okay.
And just a very memorable and horrible firefight.
Okay. And so, obviously you went to the hospital after that?
No.
No, okay.
No, I did not.
Not obviously.
First of all, I didn't know I had been wounded. And so during the firefights, you just continue to fight. After the firefight, and we regroup, and they examine everybody, and the medic came by and said, "You're wounded." And I mean, I didn't even notice all the blood that was on me at the time. And it was getting to be dark, so the last evacuation helicopter had left. So I had to really actually wait till the next day. I was fixed up by the medic, and then I went in the next day.
Okay. And were you always dropped in to an area?
No, sometimes we were dropped in by helicopters. Sometimes we were convoyed by trucks to certain areas. It all depended on the area. A majority of the time we did helicopters.
Okay. And what was life like on the base when you had downtime?
When we had downtime, it was like being a kid again, because we were all so young. Once you get back to base, after you clean your weapon and your equipment and prepare to go back out, you get a chance to take showers. You might get a chance to get a haircut. They had what we call the donut dollies. These were Red Cross volunteers. They would come to our section and bring writing material, stationery. They had a little record player they would bring with all the latest records from the United States, and they would play music for us. And we would have barbecues and just really party, play baseball, volleyball, basketball, and really, I think that was the most interesting thing. We turned into kids again. And then